Hi. So there are actually a number of things I could talk about that are related to quantified self and what we do, but because this is about life logging, I've been asked to talk about the little augmentation that I've kind of made for myself. So this is a lot more hokey than what you saw just before, because it's just something that I kind of built. It's sort of an evolution, something that is tuned to the way that I work, and it's meant to not just log what I've been doing, but that also helps me to be effective by taking care of all the tasks that I want to do and automatically readjusting how I work on them depending on whether new urgent things come up, etc. And as you heard before, the thing that's kind of special about this one is it prompts me every 20 minutes to either log something or change tasks, so it's really a 20-minute based system. And the reason it's 20 minutes is completely by trial and error. It's just what I figured out was the time period that worked best for me to either change to another task or to quickly take stock of what I was doing and continue on that same task. 20 minutes is about the minimum amount of time that I need to get anything done, and so that's why 20 minutes. The name is now completely meaningless. It's just called dil2al because I was going from detailed item lists to activity lists, really. It was a sort of how do you get things done? And you can see it's extraordinarily primitive. I'm a Linux person, so I'm in the wrong building. So we have here just a sort of terminal window that pops up. This is what happens every 20 minutes. It just kind of shows up and it asks me to do a few things. Would I want to take a little log of what's been going on and to take a look at the tasks that are coming up and change tasks perhaps. So this is sort of my interface. And I call it my augmentation because I really end up depending on it. I do a lot of different things in a day, and I do even more different things in a week or in a lifetime. And I'm the kind of person who keeps on coming up with new things to do, and so I've literally got thousands of tasks, many of which naturally decay to uselessness. So a lot of stuff ends up constantly being reprioritized down a list. And once it ends up down at the bottom somewhere, I never look at it again. But that's fine, those things are all obsolete. You just need a system that helps you do that, so that you keep track of the things that really are important. Okay, so this is really where the life logging comes in, these task logs. And that's what they were originally. They were really just logs of the tasks that I was doing and really work-related stuff, kind of putting that in there. And over time, it became more and more of a real life log where I started to note down other stuff that was interesting. And it just became more multimedia, so then in terms of logging, it's not just a matter of writing things down, it's really mostly a matter of pasting in URLs that go to videos or that go to websites, that go to important data, like the medical data Gordon was talking about. Things like that, they just all end up in there. And the reason I'm using URLs is because, well, if you use HTML, you've got a format that's open, a format that you can paste everything into, that you can link to everything, you can make ubiquitous associations, you can move around from one piece of data to another, you can track all the way back to wherever you started your first bit of writing. Okay, this is just a quick look inside one of those. Well, this is the activity list actually, sort of, okay, what is this thing suggesting that I do in a day? There are a whole bunch of things here, some of which I blacked out for privacy reasons because people's names show up in them. And you can see it kind of tells me, well, my suggestion would be at this time, do that based on the list of tasks that you have for the day and what we think might be best to do, because what it does, it takes all these tasks, it knows when things are due. Some things have a fixed target date where you're going to have to do this because you have to give a talk at the quantified self meeting. And some of the other tasks may be more flexible. You know that you just need to get them done sometime before 2012. So all this stuff has to be rearranged accordingly. Whenever you're starting your day, you have a completely new set of tasks because you didn't get everything done that you wanted to do yesterday. So all of these schedulers that you can get, the ones where you just put something on a calendar, they're usually quite useless because you can't easily move things around. It never moves to the next day. You can never rearrange things easily. So you need something that will automatically do it for you, and this does that. It automatically keeps track of your tasks, keeps reprioritizing depending on urgent things that are coming up, and suggests how you would work on them. Plus, it does something else. It makes sure that my efficiency doesn't go down by becoming bored with what I'm doing. So instead of just telling me, now you have to work for 5 hours on this presentation you're going to do, it gives me a sort of randomized set of chunks of time in which I can work on one thing, then switch to something else, And every time I log, every time it prompts me, it recalculates this list, so it gives me something else to do. And once you get used to it, or at least when I get used to it, it actually works fairly well. And I found that when I do use it, I'm a lot more efficient than when I don't. Now, that is a very personal thing. This whole thing is developed entirely around how I tend to work. It's just, I know I work well this way, so I build the device to work that way. It's not general use. I don't know if it would work for anyone else here, but for me, this is just the way it works. And okay, then I have a whole bunch of different kinds of themes and topics that my tasks fall into, and I like to keep them organized in a way where I can quickly go find stuff that has something to do with, hosting presentations, for example. Okay, that's not really that important. And then if you look inside one of those task logs, you just see that for every chunk of time, you've got it refers to the task that it belonged to, and you've got a timestamp here, a couple of different notes, maybe an email to someone, again, some blacked out pieces there. Okay, and here's the, what is this again? Oh yeah, this is kind of a sort of piece of a tool that I use if I want to personally intervene in how tasks are being reorganized, because I think that I need to restructure something for some reason, so I have a way of helping me do that and to modify whole chunks of tasks very quickly somewhere else. And if I want to get into the details, then you can pop something up where you can start messing around with attributes, like is this something that keeps reappearing every fortnight or at the end of every month, here, offset at the end of the month or something like that. And have a bunch of other things that you can do so that it has kind of a calendar function as well. Yes? What?
1 minute left.
1 minute? Oh, really? It goes so fast. Okay. And it ties into more. It ties into a method of planning tasks or planning projects that I use to keep track of very large projects. I think that that's really the original reason why I developed this thing in the first place, was because the projects I was trying to work on were becoming so big that I couldn't just make do with a regular little to-do list anymore. So you had to come up with a way of describing what are your objectives, what are the problems that you have to deal with for each of those objectives, possible solutions, what does that mean in terms of tasks, and then schedule them for the next 5 years. And then if you dive in, you get something that's kind of basically using mind maps to detail further what those kind of problems are. And you keep track of your network and your list of people you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, and you get some metrics as well telling you how efficient you've been, like how many hours you've been working, as in actual work time as opposed to what you think you've been working. You've just been, at your desk for 8 hours, but what have you actually done? How many of these chunks of time have you been doing things in? So it keeps track of that as well. And so I guess I'm just going to jump right over to the end here. And, I was going to show you an example. So the useful thing when you use the system is that you can actually keep track of where things are headed. And then you go all the way back, you can keep following things through the associations that you've put down, all those links, all the way back from what you did most recently to, say, the first time you've been working on something. And in this case, it was a project to create a pitch about a type of organization that we wanted to start. And we worked on that with a couple of people. And if you follow this all the way through to the end, then you see that now we've been working on making this conference that's coming up really soon, right after the Singularity Summit. And this is what it ends up creating, but this is really the culmination of, say, 6 months of work where a lot of things have changed, but using the system you can track right back, you can make sure you haven't forgotten anything that's been going on, and basically lifelog your way through, so you've got the record. And I agree that my biological memory is really bad. I don't remember anything I did yesterday. And I really do regard this as my actual memory. This is where I keep things.
Okay, Randal, I'm going to ask the first question here, because I love this talk and this project, and I'm very curious about the sort of substrata or the underworld of forgotten or deprioritized tasks. Because clearly that underworld is really most of the world that you're creating in terms of your task is this underworld, and what is that? Do you have a consciousness of it? Do you know how big it is? Do you feel like there's treasures down there that, kind of sifted and you have to mine it to discover? How do you deal with this underworld of deprioritized tasks that's accumulating in your system?
Well, the way I deal with it mostly is that if a task has been coming up for a while and the deadlines have passed multiple times, if the task is obviously becoming deprioritized like that, is I tend to give it still a target date sometime in the future so that the system will prompt me again and bring it back, just in case it turns out that it is of some use. Now, some things are obviously obsolete and they just don't ever look at them again. But most things, like you say, have some reason why they were there in the first place. So you'd like to remember why you were looking at them in the first place. You want to be reminded of them. And if you don't have something that helps you do that, you're never going to remember to look at it again.
Interesting.
So I have a question related to, I don't know when you started doing this, and if you have any sense about whether just the prompting every 20 minutes actually improved that level of productivity per day, and then what do you have to do if you want to goof off and watch YouTube for 10 minutes? How's that sort of, does that reassess it? So did it make you better? And should we put this on every single white-collar worker's desk to improve productivity?
Yeah, okay, there's absolutely no aspect of force involved in this. It's just a matter of self-discipline. So if you want to goof off, you goof off, and the next time that you run the prompt system, it recalculates everything for you and says, well, oh, you've missed the last 8 hours, now we're going to have to do everything on a different schedule. But I do try to improve how I work with it, and there have been phases in my life for this. I've worked with this system since 1999, but it has improved a lot since then, and not just the technical aspects, but also my understanding of how best to work with it and what works best for me. So a lot of the tuning has improved, and that also means that I've learned to work with it. And so over the past, say, 3 or 4 years, I've been a lot more effective working with that system than in the years before that. And you can tell by going back in those task logs, and the first thing you notice is that you write a lot more. There are a lot more entries there over a certain period of time. So that's the first thing.
It seems very PC centric. I mean, you spend all your time in front of the computer. What happens when you it doesn't work on the phone? Or?
Yeah. It was very PC centric, and that was fine for me for a long period of time because I used to always get back to PC within a very short period of time just because of the way my work is. And it's true that sometimes I'd have to catch up on stuff when I got back to a PC after a while. I would really like it to work on something like this now, and that would really be the next step. But I haven't had any time to work on that, so it doesn't.
You need to put it in there.
Yeah. This should work actually, since this runs Linux on the background, so I should actually be able to just pop up a terminal and do it. I don't know who to pick, so I'll just go to
Here, let's go here.
Okay.
Yeah, so seems like it helps your productivity, helps optimize your productivity. How does it help you actually with relaxing periods, creating gaps in your camera?
Well, that depends on your personality. For me, it's very important to have something like this because if I don't know that I'm making sure that I'm being effective to the point I want to be and achieving those target dates for a number of parallel things that I'm busy with, then I'll constantly be worried that I'm not doing what I should be doing, so I can't relax. But if I do this, then at the end of a day or whatever, I can just say, okay, fabulous. That's taking care of it for me. I can relax now.
Seth, can you set your talk up while we'll take a couple more questions, but Seth is going to kind of put his
reach over
talk
to this side of the room perhaps and go for a question right there.
Any chance you'd open source the code?
Yeah, I'd love to. I have absolutely no problem open sourcing it. I just never knew how to make it more usable for other people than myself because it's been so specific in the way that it's designed. Although I could imagine that people could just take that code and then start messing with it and make it more general. And gosh, yeah, you've had your hand up
Could
for a
you
while.
describe any efforts you've made to be more effective versus more efficient with this system?
Effective versus efficient. Yeah, what exactly do you mean, first of all?
Well, you could be very efficient at doing a lot of useless tasks, but if you found certain tasks were actually much more important, that would be more effective.
Yeah.
Even if you got less of them done in any particular hour.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I've actually not come up with a good metric yet for defining which task is more important than another task because it's very subjective. I mean, unless if you know what your task is, what your objective is for some set of tasks, everything gets broken down into many subtasks basically. And if you know that this needs to be done so that you can get that done, okay, they're all linked, and that's something I forgot to mention. All these tasks in there are basically a hierarchy. They all have a superior. So if something depends on other tasks being done, then that can become prioritized. So in that sense, there's an efficacy.
Your
matter there.
scheduling prioritization is all based on time and dependency.
It's based on time dependency. It's not based on, exactly.
Okay.
In the beginning, I tried to put in some other kind of relevancy or importance factor, but I never really figured out how to give that a number, how to properly measure that or give it some value. So it's really still based on time.
Okay, we're gonna have to say thank you because we have such.